Backstage.
We're back. Damien Gendron, Backstage Vancouver. Who do I have here today?
Oh, you've got Stephanie Michelle Scott of Wildfire Effect Media. Very good to be here, by the way.
Yes.
Thank you.
We're going to talk about a lot of interesting things today. Promotions, right? This is your thing. The new way.
The new way.
The new way.
The cross-media way.
Cross-media, trans-media, it all sounds all fancy. It's just basically using the new tools,
Yes.
right? There's nothing space age necessarily about it, but it's just doing it right with the new tools. I think it's so much easier even today because of these wonderful tools. Once you've got that hammer in your hand, you can do it, but it's to know how to build that little world, right? So tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you coming from, you know?
In the world of where I come from. Well, much like a lot of your viewers, I actually came from working in film production for about 15 years. Most of my work in the BC area was working on feature films. Art coordination is where I finished, but I worked in lots of departments, in the locations department, in the assistant directing department, in the props department, in the set buying department and things like that. So I understand the strife that an independent filmmaker has and the skill set that a independent filmmaker can bring to the table. I then left film industry and found myself in love with a completely different industry, and that was the one of new media production. That at the time was introductions to social media. So how do you tell your message on Facebook? What is this Twitter thing? How does LinkedIn know who I know? All of that was fascinating to me.
Right.
And as I dove deeper in, I realized that it actually became something more about your fan engagement and how well can you actually build yourself a tribe. And can you see how that all played back into film production?
It does, and it almost becomes, if you do it right, correct me if I'm wrong, it almost has a life of its own, almost becomes organic, doesn't it? Because then you're planting seeds, but it's the interaction with your tribe, your fans, your supporters. It's their input then that it starts to get a life of its own, doesn't it?
That's the thing that becomes extremely exciting, especially in transmedia, because I know you've done some podcast about transmedia, certainly a love of mine. The concept that the fans can shape the way that you communicate your message in different realms. And I think about working in all of these different internet realms as locations in your story and the story that plays out with your fans.
Absolutely.
I'm a content creator. I'm a content strategist. I've been doing that with Wildfire Effect for about 3.5 years now. But my strategies are always very fan-centric. They always believe in the ability to build the super fan, and we've actually had a lot of success doing that.
Right. I think it's still a hard topic for a lot of people to wrap their heads around. And what's your reaction to some of the things that I've heard is people are afraid that they'll lose, first of all, creative control, right? They think that someone like yourself is going to set something up that's going to, how shall I say, no, anyway, they're going to lose control. Is that true?
You know, in the early days when it came to working with broadcasters and some of the more traditional formats in film and television, there was a lot of concern about the first window, second window aspect of things, where once you put it up on the internet, you've lost it. Then we come into 2013, where you get a web series winning an Emmy Award.
Yeah.
That has been out in the open. If you haven't heard about guidestones.org, well, you will hear about guidestones.org. So there's been a true paradigm shift in the way that individuals see how their story, the story that they're putting out there, can actually interact with their fans on a one-on-one kind of base. And that, for me, is extremely exciting, because for me, it's always been about how a fan can collaborate with the story and improve it. It's always been about how you can get that excitement and that passion so that your fan bases move with you from one film to the next film.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a totally different thing. You know, in the past, what do? You sit in front of the boob tube and you watch. So it's very one way. And here's an opportunity to take that type of an environment and draw your fans into your world. And I just think it just blows me away, you know, really.
Let me tell you a really, really quick story.
Okay.
My sister, and I adore my sister, she's been the inspiration for every cultural paradigm shift in my entire life. So I'm out there hanging out at Christmas time, and we're watching a television show. I think it might have been Lost Girl at the time. And here she is on the couch, and how is she watching it? With this in hand. At the time it was an iPad, and she's clicking in and saying, so when is the next episode, and where is that character going to be next, and oh look, the director was working on this one, we've got to check out this one now. So the second screen aspect of television watching has made it a very non-passive activity.
Huge.
Proved by my sister.
Yes.
The wonder and power of all things beautiful in this world.
Well, okay. It's, you know, we need more of this. That's all I got to say. And I would like to help any way I can to get that message out and make it less scary. You know, it's not scary. It's not scary.
Yeah.
You just, even if they're not computer literate or what have you, all this can be done in a way that you just, you know, if you want some of that control, as I understand it, you can set it all up for someone. They just turn it on. It's easy. They go and they just read their messages or what have you, or the Twitter and stuff, and just interact. Just do it, you know?
Well, taking that back, one of the things that I've learned in all of my experience working with the digital platforms that exist is it's so important to actually understand what your goal is going to be within it, because you can play in many different ways. And by knowing exactly how you're going to use that tool and what you expect your fans to do with that tool, and that, in my opinion, is the fan-centric ability of doing a content strategy, then you take back that control, you take back that power. And now you're sharing a story and you're bringing it in the direction that you want it to go, which is truly what you're doing when you're promoting your own film or your own personal branding or your own products or whatever it is that you're bringing into these digital realms.
Okay. Let's go from sort of up here. Let's choose some sort of a specific example that you could think of off the top of your head.
No pressure, right?
Yeah, no pressure. Well, let's get down to the meat and potatoes. I've got a product, whatever it is, some sort of a production or what have you, or an idea, and if you could just, we could choose something like Twitter or Facebook or some more dedicated app. Can you give us sort of an idea of how that would work?
Sure. What I've developed within Wildfire Effect Media is something called an archetype strategy or an archetype storytelling strategy. Now, in the way that I develop content strategy, I always think it's important to imagine what your fan is as the hero of your story. And just like we're all really good at stories. I mean, this is what we're insatiably passionate about. It's easy for us to create a story. All I'm asking is that, number one, you bring your fan into that story and make them a character. But don't make them just a character. Make them the hero of the story. Now you have something to build your content strategy on. So how is that going to play out? Well, let's imagine that the story that you're telling is how your web series is going to educate them and be able to promote something that they have innately want to do better at. Because what you're doing is you're seeing an archetype of a rags to riches story. Now, imagine that your fan is the one that's going to benefit from that web series and that educational product that you're offering to them. How are you going to incorporate them in the story? Well, maybe what you're going to do is make your Facebook page a part of that story. Maybe it's going to be the place where they get to see all of the infographics and information and visuals that are going to help them see their future. as a bettered individual within that rags to riches story. Perhaps your Twitter is then going to support the overall story that you're telling by offering them a place where the challenges that they've come through as they're developing themselves have kind of unwound, and you're putting that in the real life situations. Do you see how this is starting to build?
Right.
So by understanding what exactly you're offering your fan base and making your fan base the hero of the story, everybody understands exactly what is going to occur, what the campaign is going to look like, and it simplifies the process.
Now, what about, are there any precedences that have been set where the fans actually helped write the script?
Oh, lots.
Yeah. So in other words, you know, they've asked for suggestions and then taken those suggestions and put them into the script so that they really felt like, oh my God, like that's part of, I'm part of this. I'm really part of this.
Anytime you look at the alternate reality game world, and if you're not familiar with what that is, and I think you may have actually mentioned it on previous shows, it's an example of the fans being able to collaborate in live, in real time, to a story that's being built. Some filmmakers decide that they want to have a lot of collaborative effort. We want to have the story that's going to be playing out, and the fans get to decide how it ends. Sometimes the fans become the characters in the story, and they actually shape the way the story works. I'm terrible with names, so I hesitate to actually give you, I'm going to say it incorrectly if I say it for sure. But Continuum, season 2, did a very, very good job of doing the how will it end. That was season, one of the main characters, fans had an opportunity to vote with their values on which direction that particular character would fall and who they would align themselves with.